Greetings, Nimrods. So, was tuning up Buick's MS 251. There's a video on that we'll link to at the end of this video. But I had printed out a page from the manual here because these newer saws have a little bit different tuning. They have limiters on the carburetor adjustment screws. Some of them don't even have carburetor adjustment screws, but this one does have a high and a low, and they have limiters on them, and it's quite different than what you're used to if you're used to turning it all the way in and then backing out one full turn on each and then going from there. There's really no going from there on these. Get it in the factory tune, because the high screw, set screw, is if you lean it out, it really is lean. It's already limited to a pretty lean setting. For fuel efficiency, not for saw longevity, so you do have to be careful of these newer saws in that regard. I did run it with the tachometer through a test log and made sure that we're not over revving, and then I checked the idle adjustment, same, brought it into spec. And the reason we want to be careful about that, again, with these newer saws, they tend to run lean, and you can get yourself in trouble in a hurry with them. You'll see this one has some burning on the bar. We'll talk about that in a second, but this one was clearly heating up. The Rakers were high. So there's two things that will cause this problem. Well, two things that will cause you to burn your bar, and that is not filing the Rakers and not using bar oil. You know, if your oil pump's gone or you're not putting bar oil in it. So that blue, I do believe that is from heat. At least makes it worse. The bars actually may come with a heat treating that, or a different kind of laminated metal on the edge. I know in the old bars they used to actually weld on an edge that was harder than the bar. So that may be part of that, but I do think it's that blue getting into it's actually from overheating. If I'm wrong, you certainly tell me in the comments. So that 260 there really got roasted, and that did have a melted cylinder in it. So this is something you want to avoid. One thing you always want to do, and I tell people this all the time, is keep your chain filed. This particular one, I went back and I filed every tooth to the same length, just because it hadn't been done in a while, and you know, a lot of the teeth were kind of butchered. You can basically find the smallest tooth and you make them all the same. Because when you're hand filing, you do one side at a time. You tend to, one position's easier to file than the other, and you tend to make one side longer than the other, and next thing you know, you're cutting sideways. So this is just demonstration. I usually do 2 or 3 strokes, but this chain is already sharp. Now I'm going to file down the Rakers, and that's the next really important thing to do. So maybe every 3 filings on the chain, I go back and hit the Rakers. And again, I file the chain probably every other tank of gas, maybe every tank of gas, depending on what I'm cutting. If I'm cutting dirty logs, I do it, you know, every time, or if I feel I need to. And you can ruin a chain in a couple seconds of a dirty log. So don't think because your chain is new or you just sharpened it that something's wrong with your saw if you're just making dust, because you just dulled your chain. It happens in a second. So going back to these Rakers here, some people call them a depth gauge on the chain. I don't know why I call them Rakers, but I do. You notice I'm putting my thumb behind the sharp part of the chain, the tooth there in front of the Raker, in front of it. That way you don't cut yourself. Go ahead and wear gloves. Don't be a Nimrod. So we're taking these down with this little jig. There's not too many passes on this because I've already done this one. So actually, in real life, this would take a few more passes on with the file, and then you just round over the front, so it's nice and smooth and has a rounded edge. I'm not taking the depth down. You'll notice I'm just rounding over the front. So there you go. You do that. Keep your chain sharp, and make sure you have plenty of oil and that your oil pump's working. And the way to test that is, you know, when you're out in the field and you're cutting, you got a stump or a clean piece of ground, just point your bar at it and rev up the chainsaw, and hopefully you'll see a little oil splattering on it, making a little line of oil. Lighter colored oils, it might be a little hard to tell. You can always turn off the saw and look at the bar too and see if there's oil on it. So there you go, Buick. We sending his saw back with a new file and gauge so that he can make sure to file those Rakers down. Happy hunting, Nimrods.